Hi, this is Pete's podcast number 13 on day number 15,965 on my way to my 100th birthday. And everyone, I'm excited today because I have actually my first guest on my podcast, and I'm excited about this. And I have a author and BJJ black belt, Chris Matakas. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Morning, Pete. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm so excited that we got together and that we're doing this, and I'm just extremely excited. So thank you so much for doing this morning. And I don't know if this is early for you or not. This is not early for me, and sometimes I forget that the world doesn't live in my world.
No, this is perfect. Yeah, I've been up for a while. This is pretty ideal timing.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to start off before I'll give you a moment in a couple of minutes to share who you are and tell my listeners that may not know you. I know a lot of guys that are following me, a lot of jiu-jitsu players out there, and they're following me, and so I got a taste of that a couple of podcasts ago when I spoke about your most recent book, and so. But I'll let you share who you are, where you're from, and some tidbits you'd like to share. But I want to first read from one of your books that you have 5 books that you've written. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Oh my goodness! And I got all 5.
Oh, you're very kind. I appreciate that.
Oh man, I appreciate you for sharing. So let me. I want to read from the Tower of Jiu Jitsu, and. If you don't mind, and please, I apologize if I misspeak or anything like that. Okay, start from in the book. It says, while writing, I find myself always returning to jiu-jitsu. I have made an effort to focus my writing on fiction, for I believe this to be where my future lies. But I am ceaselessly compelled to write about this art. I have spent more time practicing jiu-jitsu than any other human activity. In a community of highly skilled practitioners led by one of the world's best. Doors have been opened to me that have remained closed in all other endeavors. And I have been fortunate enough to have had the presence of mind to walk through them. I have spent the last 8 years devoted to jiu-jitsu. The mat time condensed into this epoch far outweighs the calendar. I originally set out to master jiu-jitsu, but sometime around brown belt, I realized mastery does not exist. It is an ever-receding horizon, and the more skilled one becomes, the more it eludes him. I am by no means an authority on jiu-jitsu, but by societal standards, my merits are few. I have never won a world championship. I have never fought in the UFC. I had reasonable success in local tournaments, but my track record of competing is not indicative of my understanding of this art or my progress as a human. My sole focus along this journey has been who am I becoming, and I pursued this through means other than competition. I have been surrounded by world champions from the beginning. Their accomplishments do not lend credence to my words. It does, however, ensure that I have been around the highest forms of mastery and have been able to connect the dots to whatever degree my intellect allows. So, in writing this book, what are my qualifications? I live a life I enjoy. Jiu-jitsu has helped me see the world and myself through clear eyes. It has given me the opportunity to serve others without martyrdom, to foster the development of children, and has been a means of introspection and unrivaled efficiency. I have had access to one of the greatest minds in jiu-jitsu on a daily basis. I have spent countless hours off the mat taking notes, mind mapping positional permutations on the whiteboard, studying videos of the world's finest. I have trained purposefully and intelligently under world-class guidance. I was given an opportunity, and I seized it to the best of my ability. My motivations for writing this book are best explained by George Bernard Shaw. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. So I love this part. I love the way you write, and I connect with you so much, Chris, because for me, my martial arts journey started when I was 9. So we're talking about 47 years ago.
That's awesome.
And it's always been about becoming more than I was at that time, and more than what I am right now. All because I want to be remembered a specific way. Now, for the sake of my friends, some who may not know you, share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and just little tidbits of why, what got you into jiu-jitsu, and just give some feedback on who you are.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Hamilton, New Jersey, and I basically played sports my whole life. And then I went away to college to Salisbury University, and I graduated May 17th, 2008, and I took my first intro class in jiu-jitsu the following Saturday, and very quickly realized that jiu-jitsu was a worthwhile endeavor. It was a problem worth attempting to solve. And I was a strength coach for a few years while I trained as much as I could, until I was given the opportunity to run Professor Almeida's school in Newtown for a few years. And that was an incredible opportunity that I learned so much from. And now I'm getting ready to open up my own school in Florence, New Jersey, which should be by the end of this month.
Wow. Man, that's awesome. And you're definitely on a journey.
Absolutely, yes.
My goodness. Now, how old are you now, if you don't mind my name?
31.
31 years old. And so for me, you're relatively young, and it's just incredible where you are as far as you just wanting to understand you, the world, life, and how you've connected it, how you use martial arts, specifically jiu-jitsu, to really help you along this journey. And you're a writer, and you're a philosopher, and and it resonates with me, because a lot of things that you said really I connected with, and especially now. Your first book was My Mastery, Learning to Live Through Jiu-Jitsu. Is that correct? Yeah?
Yes, sir. Yep.
That was your first one. And then your second one, which, A Human, Learning to Live in Modern Times. That was incredible. This book almost like stands out amongst all these, and was almost like, I had to keep asking myself, is this the same Chris Matakas? Only because it's in a way, I found it, I can hear you in the writing, but it's almost like this book that just jumps out in the midst of all, like the martial art related books or themed or what? First of all, how long did it take for you to write this book? And what motivated you just to take the time to write this one?
Okay, I appreciate that. Each writing process is a little different. I'm very inefficient in that regard. So I basically set a word count, go to the computer every day, and write every day until however many weeks or months pass where I have nothing left to say. And then I go back, reread all of it, and try to figure out what the connecting theme was. Wow. So #Human came after the first jiu-jitsu book. And I love jiu-jitsu, and I'll spend my life doing it, but my goal transcends jiu-jitsu. It's how can we have the best life possible and serve those around us. So I think ultimately my hope would be that my audience would grow beyond jiu-jitsu, even though that's where it starts. And so that was my first attempt at writing a book in that vein. And, like anything, I think as soon as you finish something, you immediately move on to the next work. Mm-hmm. And it was the best I was capable of the time, rather. Still not very good for who I hope to become as a writer and a thinker, but it was just, one brick in the wall, and I'm not really sure what this wall is going to be, but I know that was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I found this one, well, all of them. It's funny because I read a couple of your books already, and so I realized you had 5. I ordered the other 3 last week, knowing that you and I were going to come together. And my goal was to read all of them over the weekend and
You
review
are a
them.
serious student.
Oh man, it's. But I found myself, and I was telling my daughter that I had to stop sometimes on sentences to contemplate and go deep and meditate on that. And also, there was a couple of times I had to look up a couple of words.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh no, not at all, because it expands my just it was just incredible, and Human was one of them. Was that one book that had me stopping and going deeper, and then so it was so I did not accomplish my goal to read all of that at 100%. So I would go back and go there, let me go here. Then all of a sudden it became an amalgamation of this one thought, all these thoughts. I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to ask him questions or make statements or references, and they're going to be all mushed together.
Oh, not at all. It's funny you say that. I actually, very recently, my relationship to reading changed. I don't know about you, but I think parts of my ego get caught up in the books where I feel a sense of accomplishment for having read them, but the main point is to learn from them and acquire something that you can practically use. So very recently, I stopped viewing each individual book as a separate entity and, viewed each thinker as, one major body of work, and each book is actually more a chapter in that thinker's work than a separate book itself, because it's all a lifetime's articulation of trying to figure out whatever it is we're doing here, so I think that's awesome. I think that's the way to read.
Yeah, and the way I typically read is I don't put any time frame on when to finish. I just start the book like this, and I'll be reading several books at one time. I have one book that I read only one chapter a week, and I do it Saturday morning, and it's called The Measure of a Man, and by Gene Getz. And it's based on biblical scriptures and just what the Bible says about that. But I only read one chapter a week, and I'm no rush. And it's like my 3rd time reading it, but I'll do that with most of the books. And I'll stop, I also find myself, it's an exciting book, like your most recent book that you came up on Jiu Jitsu. As soon as you made it became available, I got it.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, you're very kind.
As you well know, and if somebody writes something that I can't wait to read, and they have, let's say, advanced sales, like you could purchase it before it's even published, I'll do that. And I was hoping but as soon as I got it, I read through the whole thing right away, and then I went back and started making notes, and I'm still going through it. And that's why periodically you'll see me throwing quotes up on social, because something will resonate with me in that moment on that day. And so, but I have this hunger now for books and for what people have written. And I don't know whether it was you or someone said that that these books are written so that just for you. Someone spent hours and hours writing these words down so that you, one day, could be today, could be 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, just for you to read. And all these books that have been written, I personally think they're written just for me. So I appreciate you for writing the book. But I wanted to, one thing I wanted to really talk about, one thing that's resonated with me over the last several years as a martial artist, and I have a couple of black belts, and of course now I'm working towards my black belt in Jiu Jitsu. And the one thing that's always I've asked myself, especially now that I'm rereading that book, The Measure of a Man, is this idea, the measure of a martial artist, the measure of a black belt. And your work right now is really having me look at that, look at myself as a human being. And right before I got together with you, I put some thoughts down here that I call the measure of a black belt. And the first lines were, the measure of a black belt, it's not how one dies, but how one lives. It's not what one gains, but what one gives.
Oh.
And so you're just reading, you're going through your books over the last couple of days has me really going in to deeper and seeing myself not just today but beyond me. And when I leave, and I look at my kids, and I have kids. I have a soon to be 17-year-old and a soon to be 14-year-old. And this is my second time around. So I have grandchildren. So I've been, 56 years. I've had enough experience to desire that when I am gone, what are they going to say about me? What are going to when people do think of me? What will they think of? And it's the work that I'm doing now as a teacher, as an educator, as a friend, as a family member. And so your work is really, channeling people, especially if you go to martial arts, and because martial arts, I believe martial arts is the only endeavor or environment that was created for personal development, and it's very physical. However, it has very little to do with physical. So,
very true.
And so where are you? I know you're 31. You've been doing martial arts 8 years, right? Going on 9 years now, I would think. Right?
Now, yeah, we just made it to 9 years.
Okay, so you're a thinker. What are your thoughts now as a martial artist and the training of martial arts for human development? Of course, people can read your books and really get a handle of where your thoughts are with that. But real quickly, can you share with those that are listening your thoughts on martial arts and the endeavor of martial arts, and maybe even touch on, I really don't want to go deep into the state of the martial arts industry or world, but because there are so many of you guys out there that are living the life and are striving to become more and then sharing the knowledge.
Yeah, so I think my relationship to martial arts at this point is I will be a student for the rest of my life. I will not be a student in a competition sense, but for life, for understanding the art and for using the lessons I derive from Jiu Jitsu in the rest of my life. So I have never found a vehicle that is as efficient and effective in personal development as Jiu Jitsu, and I don't think I will. Certainly that is in part to the opportunities I've had to be Professor Almeida's student, to have an amazing core group of guys to train with on a regular basis, your instructor, Professor Pete McHugh, being one of them. And I just recognize that my growth as a human being really parallels how well I'm doing in Jiu Jitsu. And like anything, the farther I've gotten into Jiu Jitsu, the more I realize it's infinite, and I can never master it, and I can never learn all of it. But as I learn a little bit more each day, my life becomes more joyful, and Jiu Jitsu becomes more fun. So for my relationship to Jiu Jitsu moving forward, it's something I want to do until I die. Certainly not at a competition-like pace, but in a slower, the slower training with people you can trust, where we can do this when we're 80 years old. And I think my main hope for myself in Jiu-Jitsu would be that I just get to teach this art for the rest of my life and help people become whatever it is they want to become, but use Jiu-Jitsu as the vehicle to do so, because it's so physically demanding and it's so cognitively complex that in order to understand Jiu-Jitsu, you develop the virtues and the skill sets where you can really understand anything if you just apply that same mode of operations to other areas of your life. So my hope would be that I can share Jiu-Jitsu with as many people as possible and just give them that alternative lens through which they can view the rest of their life in a slightly different way that might serve them better than, say, outside of Jiu-Jitsu rarely does.
Yeah. I was as you was talking, I was thinking of when I get on the mats, like yesterday. I train pretty much every day except Saturday and Sunday with Jiu-Jitsu. And yesterday I went to class saying, okay, I want to focus on. Based on some of what I've read, what you said, and of course my thought was always, I want to do this till I'm 100, and I calculated my days that I have until my 100th birthday, and it's 15,965 days.
I love that, by the way. That's a great tool for perspective.
Yeah, and I write it down in my journal every day, that number, because it keeps me aware of that, how many days I have left. If I am blessed to live that long.
Absolutely.
And so I said, jiu-jitsu is a vehicle that's going to take me there. And again, I heard that in your writing. And so I started when I was in 2010 as a challenge from a 6th degree master who started doing jiu-jitsu. Actually, it was Tom Callos who told me, hey, look, Pete, if you want any weight behind that black belt of yours, I think I was training to test for my 5th degree master belt in Tang Soo Do, Korean martial art. He said, if you want any weight in that belt, you got to train jiu-jitsu. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and one of his students was B.J. Penn. His son, I don't know if you know, his son is Keenan Cornelius. And
Absolutely.
So Tom Callis, he was a mentor of mine for a couple of years, and he said that to me. And I didn't get it until I got on the mat as a 4th degree master, and I had a white belt with 2 stripes.
Good for you, by the way, to do that, to have that humility to start over like that.
Well, that's why he said you had to do it. He said, because when was the last time you were a white belt? When was the last time you put yourself out there where you knew nothing?
Yeah.
And so it was such an awakening for me, and it's that every time I get on the mat, and it's powerful, and it humbles me, and I'm reminded that there's so much more to learn. And I went yesterday thinking that, I want to relax, and it's got to be sustainable. I try to avoid the injuries because if I want to do this when I'm 100, I'd love to on my 100th day, and my last breath, I said, okay, I'm out of here, guys, and just give me one more arm bar, give me one more choke. Okay, I'm out of here. Bye. But for that to happen, I have to keep rolling, and I have to be smart about it. And then yesterday, I got together with a white belt who just got his first stripe, and he's like 50 pounds heavier than me, and he came at me like a bulldozer tank. Then I said I had to reposition, but hey, I survived it, and I got through it, and I did what I had to do. But that's jiu-jitsu. That's jiu-jitsu. And
I don't think that ever changes. At least from my perspective, I kind of craft my own curriculum in sort of month cycles, depending on how long it takes to understand something. So a few months ago, I recognized that I really didn't understand the Darce well, certainly to the degree that I hoped to, and I still don't. But I basically sought out Luke, who, Luke, he's the Darce master. He does it to everybody. So my sole focus was train with Luke as much as possible, learn the Darce as much as possible, and try to Darce Luke, even though that never happens. And I think as soon as I get a better understanding of that Darce and I feel like I have it, I'll move on to something completely different where I'm completely without strength or experience. So I think you're always a white belt if you are training to acquire skill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without question. I know. I read the other day. I heard a comment the other day saying that and this was from a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he said that there's a point where you get to where you're like through purple, like through of course white belt, blue belt, and maybe even in purple belt. But it's definitely when you get to about high purple belt, brown belt, definitely black belt. Technically, if you really work for technique, you will find that you're going to have to do other things to build your strength, because then you start really using technique, and it's not so much strength or speed. It's timing and positions and relaxation, and for me, it's been like from my other martial arts that I train in, a sensory, a feeling, a sense, and so and I'm trying to see if I can use that in my jiu-jitsu, where I can just feel where they're going and be there before they even get there.
I love that.
And except I have very few answers to when I know where they're going, but I haven't done jiu-jitsu enough to know what's the answer. Okay, so they get me in. Yesterday I got into bow and arrows. I know he's putting me in bow and arrow. I know he's going to take me there. I know his arm's going to go there. I know he's going to grab this. I know he's going to grab that. Okay, and I know I could do this, but he's blocked that off. And okay, what I'm going to do. relax, get choked out and tap and start again.
That's right.
I wanted to go to your most recent book and ask a question. Just read something really, really short here in the very beginning, in the preface here, and because I know you took some time off.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And let me read from here. It says, I spent last summer alone in the national parks out west. I didn't train jiu-jitsu once and rarely even thought about it. Deep down, I wasn't sure if I would ever train again. I had been practicing jiu-jitsu nearly every day, multiple times a day for 8 years. My body was broken. My soul was tired. And I wondered if teaching and training were still the best use of my single finite life. And so body was there's a lot there that I wanted to ask about. And body was broken. And so physically, you're saying?
Yeah, just injuries started to pile up. I had been dealing with back pain, pretty bad back pain, to the point where I couldn't really sit down for a few years. Knees were a little banged up from all the leg entanglements. And I had torn my pec weightlifting about 9 months prior to that. And when that happened, I realized, like, all right, my body's falling apart. I'm mentally and spiritually exhausted. I need to plan it out so I can get away, to reassess. And it's that whole idea of, there's that old parable where these fish are swimming along in the water.
Yeah.
And that older fish swims by and says, morning, boys, how's the water? And they swim on for a while, and the one turns and asks, what the hell is water? And it's that same idea that, if you are always in your own environment, you can't really see it. So I wanted to get away and reassess and see how I really wanted to spend, my next, hopefully 70 years if I make it as far as you will.
Yeah. And I thought that was because the body, I know the body and jiu-jitsu, I mean, it's called the gentle art, right? I mean, that's one of the translations.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you do it.
It depends on how you do it. And when I read that, I just found that extremely fascinating. And then, of course, it's in line with what you've written. And now that you're back, now obviously you went away and you came back and you're opening up your first school, right?
Yes, sir.
And I believe the lease is signed, you've got the keys, and have you painted it yet?
Oh, yeah. We painted this weekend, and we're working on the permits now for changing rooms and an office. So we're doing all the little things we can, but we're hoping to put the mats down this week. Wow,
that's great. So you're hoping to open doors by, I know the permits sometimes, the CO sometimes can take, depends on the people who are inspecting.
Yeah, luckily we've had a lot of help with a lot of really kind people who know the ins and outs of the process, and we're hoping to start classes by August 28th.
That's awesome. That's like what, next week?
2 weeks, yeah, right around the corner.
Wow. Well, that's all. I sure hope so. I can't wait. I got to be there. See if I can try to be there. I'd love to be there and just and get beaten up on those mats. I would
love that very much.
That'd be awesome. It's funny because I was thinking that it'd be awesome to come together with you live to do this
yes.
And because I'm thinking, what would it be like for me to roll with you and in my mind there's going to be like a gentleness, and then all of a sudden lights out. Almost what I hope death would be. But
that's a pretty favorable description. I've never heard it described in that way before.
It's funny because I like being I like the blood chokes because it puts me just before I pass out, and I like to wait a little bit to tap before I go up because I like that feeling of lightheadedness. And I don't know if there's something wrong with that, but it helps me relax. I get very relaxed with that, and so I could see that happening, and then but no, I think that would have been awesome to do something like that, to train with you and then to talk about.
We can do it next time.
We'll do it next time. There's still plenty of time to do that. So you've got 5 books. under your belt, so to speak.
Well
And
said.
I know you've got more. Are you writing notes down now?
Yeah, so right now I am, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a book. So I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient with my time, and rather than just write until I have nothing left to say and then try to discern what it was I was trying to say, I'm trying to have a much better, well constructed argument. So I am on outline number 7 and of what I hope will be the new book. Basically, if it survived the first 3 outlines, it's probably a pretty good argument.
Mm.
So I finished, I'm on 7, and I'm going to not look at it for about a month. And then I'll go back, and if it still seems like a well-constructed argument, then I'll write the book.
Nice. Well, you got one sold. Because,
I appreciate that.
okay. Even if I'll get it, and I'm not one for critiquing. I don't like to critique, but I like to look for the one thing, and I'm sure you're going to have at least one thing in there that's going to resonate with me, without question. Without question. Now, anyone that wants that's doing jujitsu, what's the number one thing? I know in your book you mentioned that, and with learning to live through jujitsu, some of the things you recommend if somebody wants to start jujitsu, and just for the benefit of those that are listening, that because I have people that are listening that are not martial arts. Some of my audience are this: are parents of my students, and then some of the actors that came out of the acting, performing arts world as an actor. They're around the world. They're following me and listening, and the life skills, principles, concepts, and ideas that I share, that I've learned through martial arts, especially through jiu-jitsu, they've taken. So they're listening. And of course, other people in the jiu-jitsu world, only because simply, I throw names around like Chris Matakas and Pete McHugh and Ricardo Almeida and all these other names, and it's resonating with all these jiu-jitsu players around the world. It's pretty cool. And even Keenan Cornelius had made a comment on one, so that was pretty cool. But
that's great.
Yeah, so you have, your first podcast that you did with Greg, what's his I can't pronounce his last name.
I can't either. Nick from Jiu-Jitsu
Nick. Yeah, and I've heard.
I should know that.
Yeah, I've heard him speak before. I've watched him, and then when you shared that you had done that and who it was, I started listening, and it was he had looked at you and said, "The gentleman." I guess somebody had introduced you to him, and
from my understanding, one of his close friends had read a couple books.
Yeah,
and it was a pleasure. He's a fantastic ambassador for the sport. It was really a privilege just to get to talk to him. I remember when he did that Stuart Cooper film.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
It was called The Soul of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I downloaded it, and I used to listen to it on the way to training, and that was years ago, and so it was really nice to kind of get to talk to him firsthand.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too, that Stuart Cooper video. As soon as I saw his name, I was like, oh my gosh, and I started listening, and he's got that distinct voice with his accent or dialect, whatever it is, and I was like, whoa. And in that moment, be honest, I got a little intimidated. I couldn't listen to it because I said, no, let me not listen to it because I don't want to say or ask the same things he does.
Oh, no.
But I'm definitely going to listen to it after we speak today. I'll definitely be listening to it. But he did mention that, refer to you as someone who's black belt in jiu-jitsu, but has taken the ideas, the concepts, principles, the philosophy, and turned it really into, made it so that people could see it as a way of life. And
absolutely.
And I really don't know any other writers that are black belt in jiu-jitsu and that are writing, the philosophy. And I keep saying, the principles, concepts, ideas, thoughts, because that's how I teach. And this is what I learned in jiu-jitsu. It's not just a technique. It's what's the idea here? What's the concept, principle? What are we trying to accomplish? It's not just a technique. And so he had said that. That's the first, when I heard the beginning, that's part of his introduction was that of you. Is that how you see yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't really thought about how I see myself. I would hope that, I think each of us takes whatever talents and proclivities we have, and you take that as far as you are able, and then you use that to help other people. And I think just from my particular experience with my education, with my experiences in jiu-jitsu, it just seemed like this was the right path. Joseph Campbell had a great quote: "If the path is clear, you're probably on someone else's." And I always liked that. And someone brought up recently that I'm sort of creating a new genre in martial arts books, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. Philosophy and martial arts have always been intertwined, but certainly I feel like I'm on a path that's uniquely my own, and I don't know where it's headed. But I know if I just keep showing up every day, learning a little bit more, applying purposefully directed effort, eventually I'll take this thing, I think, to a pretty great place. And I would say I value what jiu-jitsu does for the lives of us off the mat just as much as the technical training itself. I value the benefits off the mat even more, because I think that is ultimately much more important than the practice of the art. It's what the art does for us in our daily lives.
Without question. I know when I first started teaching martial arts, my hope was, hey, it'd be cool to teach kicks and punches. And the first thing I realized when I started teaching kids, especially here in Mount Laurel, people started bringing children that were ADD, ADHD, on the spectrum, the Tourette's, all the Asperger's, all these words I never heard of. And I remember one time I was asked to do a birthday party for one of our students that was on the spectrum, and all their friends came from their class. And it was about 6, 7 kids that were on the spectrum. Very, oh my gosh. And my ability to work with them, it just came. And I remember just thinking, my goodness, martial arts, if it will benefit anyone, it has to benefit individuals like that. And the type, I grew up, I was always athletic. Even though, I grew up in the streets, I didn't have the opportunity to go to school. My education is extremely limited because, I grew up in the street gangs, and I came out of the gangs of New York. And it's just by God's grace that I'm where I am right now. So I don't have the education, but to be in the position that I am right now and teaching. But martial arts for me took things like humility and all these non-tangible characteristics, and they became living and active and real on the mat. And then when I started training in jiu-jitsu, even more so. Yeah. And so that's why years ago I came to the conclusion within my own heart that the martial arts environment, the mats, and I started using the word mats when I started training in jiu-jitsu. The mats has been designed like no other environment to build character, to build a person, to make them stronger from the inside out, albeit we start from the outside.
Well said.
To get to the inside. And your writing is, again, I have not read all the books there is to read, but meeting you and then going through your books and your writings, I can see how Nick would say something like that, or I think, was it Nick that said that? A new genre of books of martial arts.
I don't remember who it was, but certainly.
But I would definitely agree. I would not argue with that, because it's resonating with me. It's like I'm saying, finally someone is connecting the dot, because we get so caught up in martial arts generally in the physical aspect because of the spectacle of it. And of course, because at 56 years old, I love it when Hickson Gracie said a couple of weeks ago at a workshop, he said, you know what, I'm at like the 20% of my physical, but I'm at 100% at my mental capacity and my wisdom. He said, and that's, I get that, because my kicks aren't high. I'm not as fast as I used to be. Everyone, they say, hey, Pete, man, you're in great shape. But I'm 56. I have a different kind of filter. And I remember when I was 20. I remember when I was even 40. even 50 years old. I have videos. I said, I can't do that anymore. But there's a different mindset. And then what you're writing at 31 years old it's for me, it's like connecting the dots and giving it, and you're saying it in a very simple way that resonates with me. And I know will resonate with someone that does not practice martial arts. But of course, I will always encourage everyone to train in martial arts, and I would start in Jiu Jitsu.
Absolutely, as would I.
Now, if anyone wanted to get a hold of you and connect with you, I know they can go to get your books. I highly recommend everyone get the books, so they can go to Amazon. They can go anywhere to get the books. On your website, probably you have links to where they can get the books, right? To Amazon and everything like that, right?
Not yet on the website. The website is version 1.0 right now.
Gotcha.
But they can certainly get them on Amazon. We can connect through Facebook, Instagram. My name is Matakas BJJ, and Facebook is just my name.
Chris Matakas, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, man, I appreciate you spending this time with me, and a lot of times I invite the audience, people who are listening, to, if they know anyone in their community that's making a difference in their community, to please share about that and share it on social networks and whatever way. Let the community know, the people out there. And so and I love that I had the opportunity to meet with you and share a little bit of your life with everyone that's listening. And any final words for everyone out there? Final
words. I would just say, no matter where you're at, if you are training jiu-jitsu, no matter where you're at in your journey, whether you're injured or you're healthy or you're competing or you want to lose weight, whatever it might be, just the more sincerely we seek to understand the art, the greater the benefit it has for us. And I think that's, with so many things vying for our attention these days, it is difficult to apply that purposefully directed attention. And the greater we can do that, the greater jiu-jitsu will be for us. And like anything, I think if we find something that's valuable, we should share it with as many people as possible, like you're doing with your podcast and your teaching. And just share jiu-jitsu with anyone who can benefit from it. And realistically, everyone can benefit from it.
Right. Well said. Well said. I love it. Thank you so much. And I know we'll see each other very soon.
I can't wait, Pete. Thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure to talk with you.
I appreciate it, man. You have a great day. And let me just say goodbye to everyone. Thanks for spending this time with Chris Matakas and I. And if you have any questions, comments, please contact me. You can contact me at Peter Liciaga, either on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm even on Snapchat. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can even email me at peter@peterliciaga.com. But more importantly, connect with Chris Matakas, and any questions you have about his books and his thoughts on martial arts and jiu-jitsu and his upcoming book. And please ask him, connect with him. Chris, you have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you, Pete. Can't wait.
All right. Okay. Great. So what I did is I just